Like I play for Hornets. When I'm performing, never boring. Now you can't afford it. Champagne Perrier.
Alright, now I know I said it would take me 6 months to build this thing, and that was 11 months ago. So we're getting straight into it with the XC. The 2JZ has been sitting in there whilst it's been in storage. So first up, we're ripping the 2J out. I've got all these parts from Golby's Parts that I'll put up on the screen now. A couple of grand worth, a couple of spicy items, and we're just gonna throw all those bits on, build the 2J, slap the 2JZ, maybe back in. I think I might paint the engine bay first. It's literally just gonna be pressure pack black, just to get this thing going. Like I said I was gonna have this done in 6 months, and that was 11 months ago, so well behind schedule. So let's stop talking shit and just get this engine out. Okay, so I've got a bit ahead of myself. I will need to take this bonnet off first, and these things are very easy to take off with 2 people, very annoying to take off with 1 person. So I'll try my best, then we'll get the 2J out.
What are you up to?
I just have to build that engine crane real quick, and now we're gonna take this bonnet off. Pull the engine out, so put all those parts, build the engine, make the engine really good. Okay, so it's literally the next day, because when I got the engine out, I realised I'd lost the bolts to bolt the 2J to the engine stand, and they're M12 by 1.25mm thread, and they need to be over 100mm long. And those bolts are impossible to find. And now that I live super far away from Perth, it took me about a half hour just to get to Bunnings, and they of course didn't have the bolts. It would have been another half-hour drive to go to a specific bolt store. So I just got some M10s, some really long M10s, and then just got them to go through the thread and put a nut on the other side. Tightened it all up. So the engine only weighs about 150 kilos, so not bad. But yes, it's the next day, so we're starting first thing. Got all the new parts there, got the engine there. I'm gonna start tearing it down, putting all the new shit on there, and hopefully in one hit should have the engine apart, head off, paint the engine, make it look all fresh, put everything back on, torque it all down, and have a totally different looking 2J by the end of this. I'll just go over exactly what we need to do. So head's coming off, new head gasket, new ARP studs. This also ran by a distributor before, so we've pulled the distributor out and we're going R35 GDR coils, coil on plug conversion. We're doing cam position sensor conversion, so we're gonna need to run 2 cam position sensors through here, and then we're doing the crank position sensor conversion as well. Changing over some pulleys, fresh water pump. This engine already has a GTE front sump on it, which means it has the oil return for the turbos, so that's there. I've got AN fittings for that. Some other things like NOx sensors and whatnot. I've got the oil cooler delete kit, because with this oil cooler on, it just makes things a little bit tighter in the engine bay where it doesn't need to be. A couple of other fresh bits, and I would have loved to have gotten some new cam covers, some GTE cam covers, but they're super expensive, and for what they are, I don't need them now, so just gonna have to freshen up the GE cam covers for now. Also, this is Waffle. Waffle? You wouldn't have seen much of Waffle before because she never came to the workshop, but now that we're running out of home, she's going to be hanging around a whole lot more. Alright, once again, back again the day after, because cleaning that took forever. So this is where we're at now. The block's all cleaned up. Pistons are all cleaned up. The deck's pretty much as clean as it can get. The head's all done. So the head's pretty much ready to go back on, and cleaned up a few other pieces as well. Just got to put the buckets back in, install the head studs, and then head on. But first, got to paint the block, because obviously the block looks like trash at the moment with that rusted aesthetic. We'll spray the block a nice gloss black, get it looking all pretty. Then once that's done, slap the head on, and we can start doing all the fun stuff. Right on. So, blocks painted, decks all cleaned, pistons are all fresh and clean. Not too bad considering what they looked like. When I started, they were just black and absolutely crusted up. So, not bad at all. Obviously, there's some imperfections in the deck, but that's about as good as I'm going to get for a home job, unless I have a sanding stone or a big flat sanding stone and I can just fully sand the deck. But I'm not willing to do that because I don't have the correct stuff. So it's as good as I think we're going to get it. We're just going to send 30 PSI and see what happens. So it's ready for the studs now. Obviously, got the ARP studs instead of bolts. Like factory, they use bolts, but with something like this, you really want to use studs to really clamp that head down. So I'm gonna get all these studs installed and we'll slap this head on. So next up, I'm installing the crank pulley, which comes with the trigger wheels for the crank sensor. So put that on, I have to do some modifications to the oil pump, unless I use a GTE oil pump, but in this case I'm using a GE oil pump. And I got this from Super V World, and not only does he provide the parts, I also got the cam position stuff for him. He provides super detailed instructions, but also gives you the exact tooling that you need to do the job, like the hole saw, the bird, everything. So how good's that? I've never actually received parts like that where they give you the tooling to carry out the job. So Super V World, if you've got a 2J, absolute must do.
Now, after installing the accessories and the drive belt, it was on to the cam position sensors that Super V World provided with the cam pulleys. Now, when you order this kit, you get a template that you just slot onto the cam cover and drill the holes in the spots that they tell you to. And if you drill them in the exact right spots, you should have a beautifully mounted cam position sensor bracket. After you've mounted the bracket and installed the cam position sensors, there's a trigger bolt on the cam pulleys that you need to space out to get the correct gap between the cam position sensor and the trigger bolt. In this case, it was between 0.3 and 0.8 of a millimeter. And of course, once that's done, a couple of spins to make sure that nothing hits and it's all installed correctly.
That money clip us now, the new now looks like, whoa, upgrade her diamonds, now her girlfriends are like, whoa, 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 I hit record a drop, you can't ignore it. I'm transforming now these cars and planes, I'm always bored.
Okay, so the 2J is now done. Well, all the major things are done. I've still got to upgrade the cam covers to the GTE cam covers because, as you can see, these standard GE cam covers, they don't look that great. And they're also made out of a bit of magnesium alloy mix, so you can't weld bungs onto them. So I need to get the GTE covers and have the bungs that I need already onto them, and so it just looks 10 times better. But I can do that when it's in the car. So this is now ready to put into the XC. The only thing stopping me from putting this in the XC right now is I need to paint the engine bay, and you know it's getting rattle canned. So probably gonna duck down to Super Cheap real soon and get some paint to paint the engine bay, because many years ago, I already painted this. The black that you see here is GMH flat black. Ooh, GMH, oh goodness me, it's the wrong color for the car. But I painted this in my driveway over 10 years ago, and it's still good to go. I used an etch primer underneath after it was sandblasted. It was etch primed. The fact that It's not rusting anywhere. I'm just going to paint over the top of it and it should be right. So we're going a bit of a gloss black finish in the engine bay, which will help the alloys and the purples and all the bits on the 2JZ stand out quite well. Now, if you're wondering, it doesn't look like it's going to fit that massive exhaust manifold on it, which actually none of you are probably thinking that because you just think it's an XC and they have V8s and they're an old car, so there's plenty of room. Well, no, there isn't actually enough room in the XC engine bay for the 2JZ with a turbo manifold. Well, for this turbo manifold, 6-boost manifold for the 2JZ GE does hit in the X Series engine bay. It hits the strut tower, and the part that hits is this wastegate here. Now, as you can see, the wastegate sticks out pretty far. But if this wastegate was just rotated anti-clockwise just a little bit, it will clear. So what I've got to do before we put this in is I've got to cut this off at the weld and then basically rotate it. And then once it's in there, tack it back on, take the manifold off, and then fully weld it. I probably won't do that yet because I don't have a welder yet. Still got to go out and buy a welder. Once that happens, I can start doing intake piping and all the cool shit. That will come in the next XC episode. And speaking of next, I've got to do the tray. So cleaned out the tray, masked it all up until I ran out of masking sheet about there, so I'll just be very careful around this area. Degreased it, vacuumed it all up. I think the original color of this ute was hot pepper red, or maybe that was just the donor floor that was used, if there was a donor floor, I don't know, maybe. And now this is all cleaned up. I'm not doing tubs, I'm not doing anything fancy, I'm not straightening all this out, I'm not doing all that. There's no rust here, so this is just getting Raptor coated. You can see it's already got, it might even be Raptor coat, but I think this is just a road texture stuff. But it's sort of come off, it's not all the way over here, and yeah. So I'm going to be doing this entire section in Raptor coat, totally sealing it up. That way I can start installing the fuel tank and running the wiring loom back, doing the lights, getting the rear end of the car basically sorted, so we can start really putting the interior. So the Raptor liner has set, as you can tell, I've stuck the guards in there already, because now we're ready to do the engine bay paint. Now I'll show you all what it all looks like after this. I'll do it all in one big hit once everything's done. And I've got it set outside because if I spray paint in here, like I found out with the Raptor liner, the fumes just stay in here and I get super high super quickly. So I've set the front of the car out the front, which I'm not sure which is worse, the fumes or dealing with the wind outside, because in Perth, it's very, very, very windy. So as you can see by the tarp blowing around everywhere, it's super windy and horrible, horrible conditions to paint in, but it doesn't matter. It's just the engine bay paint. It's mainly covered by this grass used to be really green everywhere, but Waffle just loves laying in it, turning it brown because she just lays in it for hours in the day sunbathing. Waffle? Are you sunbaking? But yes, horrible conditions to paint in, and probably going to get dirt blown all over the paint, but it doesn't matter because we're just getting it painted, get the engine in, and most of the engine bay is covered up with stuff from the engine anyways, catch cans and all that sort of jazz. So here's the carrot set up. Just got that there to stop it going into the garage and getting on Emma's car, and you know, it's not really doing much other than acting as a wind sail. Try and get this painted with minimal overspray and see just how good we can get a little driveway paint job going on. And if you're wondering what colour I'm doing the engine bay, obviously black, it's just the easiest way to do it. But when I went to Super Cheap Auto to go get the paint, I gave them the paint code for Emma's Mercedes, which is like it's called night black. Dark, glossy black, going in the engine bay. Purple in the engine, it's gonna make it pop a little bit, you know what I mean? So yeah, we'll start painting, see how horribly it turns out. And it's done. Well, kind of, it still needs like a wet sand or something like that, but the paint's there. So I'll get the engine in, and then next week I'll sand it down, because you've got to wait 24 hours until you can sand the clear coat. So get the engine in, get that all looking pretty, and that'll pretty much be it. You might see that there's still like primer there. That's because those what would you call those? Bars, torque rods, it's where the front torsion bar bracket areas. I'm just gonna do those in like your stone chip paint because I don't really care about those. You can see I've already done stone chip paint at the front of it. I just sort of left a gap. I didn't want the stone chip paint spraying on the fresh clear coat of the black. So I can do those with the engine in as well. So once the clear coat dries, I can mask it off. Do the rest of the bits with the stone chip, like the bottom staff and all that sort of crap, and then wet sand it, and it should be good to Alright, we're in. Done. 2J built. Engine bay painted-ish. As you can see, the factory press marks from the sheet metal is still there. I'm definitely not smoothing anything out here, but look, shiny black, that's all I really wanted. Now the 2J's in, that'll be staying in, as far as I know. So I can start hooking up things like steering box, strut tops, and actually put shock absorbers in, do the steering, brake booster, all the stuff, radiator, all that sort of Gucci shit. And speaking of which, I don't think this is really complete just yet. Ah, much better. Now you can kind of see it. And yes, I'm going with the single headlight grille, not the dual headlight grille, because I love the look of the single headlight grille. You can crucify me, but the single headlight grille looks more like a muscle car than the dual headlight grille. Just my opinion. I've always loved it. I had it on my old XC. I rocked the single headlights with the little grille inserts, and I will be doing something custom with this grille too. Whether that's entirely getting rid of the headlights altogether and continuing the grille and having the headlights behind or somewhere else. But this grille won't be very standard. It'll probably just end up coming out exactly like the grille in my old XC because I loved that look. It was something custom. I'm pretty sure I was the first person to do it. I've seen one other person do it since then. They got the idea from me. So if I can recreate that, I reckon that'll pull this car off quite nicely. All right, I'm gonna call it there. And I know you're thinking, well, he's probably back to uploading regular content. But after I upload this, I'm going to Japan soon. So I need some parts for the 2J, and people want exuberant prices when buying them secondhand here in Australia. So might as well just go over to Japan real quick, grab some 2J parts, bring them back for much cheaper. Maybe make a snow trip out of it, who knows. I might be able to get one more episode out before I go to Japan, which will be on the XA. Now that the 2J's in and the engine stand is free, I can take the Clevo out of the XA and paint the XA engine bay. And as you can see, the XA's engine bay has had a little bit more prep done to it, so that should turn out pretty nicely. And once that's painted, the Clevo can go in and stay in. I've got the C4 on the back as well, so the C4 will be properly mounted up and everything like that. And the good thing about getting the Clevo into a painted engine bay means I can wire it up. I can have everything wired up, and I could probably start this up because I have everything to put the XA together. I've got everything to get the Clevo running. I've got everything to put the interior back together. This can start going back together. I'll worry about exterior paint and the rest of the panel stuff later on. Whereas with this, there's still quite a lot to go before I can get this 2J running. I need to spend a lot of money, and I mean a lot of money, on a Haltech, the wiring harness, and all that sort of good shit to get the 2J running. Actually, it's not even just the Haltech and the wiring harness that's going to cost me a lot of money. It's the transmission. I've got to get a T400. People want wild money for T400s these days. So we're going to get a T400, Haltech wiring harness, couple bit more things. It's like 10 grand straight off the rip. So a little bit more money into this before it's running, whereas no more money into this to get this running. So just a little bit of time. The XA will be the next episode. If you absolutely hate seeing a 2J in an XC, don't worry, because you'll be seeing fucking bloody more of a champion. So thank you all for tuning into the first episode in months. I think the last episode was 7 months ago, 8 months ago, I can't even remember anymore. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to keep seeing some wild XC progress, subscribe to the channel, give the video a little bit of a like. I'm not like some of these YouTubers that go out here and go, oh, we just spent 50 grand on a little conversion for this one video. I've got to work a way to earn the money, and I've got to chip away at this slowly, and I'm doing 2 of them. For some reason I'm building 2 cars at the same time. I don't know why I wanted to do this. But if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, give the video a like, and I'll catch you guys on the next
Just out
episode.
touring down in Charlotte like I play for Hornets. When I'm performing, never boring, now you can't afford it. Champagne Perrier, finished friends on my face, looking like I'm from the deep. These no Cartiers, pockets deep, 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 bro.